everybody, and welcome to Mad Realm's Vote to Kick. I'm your host, Jim, and with me, fellow Talking Script co-host, Arlee. How you doing?
Hey. Hi.
So, before we jump into the topic of video game remasters, which is a topic chosen by our guest tonight, let's talk about last episode's results 2 weeks ago, where we had Deo on, and we were talking about video game launchers. And, primarily a lot of talk about the Epic Game Store and Steam. Also some other things, Uplay, Origin, some other launchers. The poll is split. I mean, granted there were 6 votes, but still 50-50. So it's definitely... Tavik, I don't have to hit record. It's just part of what I do. But it's just a split vote. I'm not surprised, to be entirely honest. I know me saying I'd rather there not be any launchers at all and I just get games directly from websites anymore. And I'll just have a desktop full of game launcher shortcuts. Or not even game launchers, just game shortcuts. You know, back in the olden days. You know, I'll open my Diablo 2 as I yell at kids to get off my lawn. But getting into tonight's topic with video game remasters. Poll. Exactly. Not much change here, but we've got 1 and 1 right now. So, if I can type the command properly, link to the poll. Arlee is going to be talking about kicking
Yes.
remasters. So take it away.
Oh, I get to lay out my case first?
Well, you can either go first or you can pass to me. It's guest choice.
Oh, I see. All right. So basically the thing with remasters is they take a game that was previously made at some point. It varies. Sometimes it's like, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, whatever. And they repackage it and re-release it, often at the same price of a full brand new game, which is kind of problematic because it's not like, even for like games that were 30 years where you do have to do a fair amount of work to update it to get it to play on the modern systems and stuff, it's still not the same as creating a new game from the ground up. So selling them at full price kind of is like, to me. And I think really in general, developers should put their time into giving us new things, new stories, new experiences, rather than focusing on old stuff and trying to recash in on their stuff again.
So, you're not a huge fan of Nintendo in a lot of ways.
I am not a huge fan of a lot of the things that Nintendo has done, yes. I understand their logic and why they do it, but I think it's a bad thing.
Okay, that's fair. So is that your opening argument here?
Yep, that's the general argument.
Okay, so I feel like despite the past 2 episodes of Vote to Kick where there was no common ground, I'm going to open with agreeing that I do think that there does need to be something added to a game if it is ever updated. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I do think a certain level of... And yes, NGR brings up a good point that the Borderlands Game of the Year Enhanced Edition with the, was it 4K texture resolution update, was free for whoever owned the game already. And that's fantastic. That's
great.
Yeah, exactly.
If they want to do that. That's
wonderful.
Awesome.
I look at stuff and I agree. Like, I feel like there needs to be something added. So one of the things that I experienced as the first remaster that I ever really got was when I picked up Legend of Zelda Wind Waker for the Nintendo GameCube. And because I pre-ordered it, it came along with a bonus disc. And on that bonus disc was Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and Ocarina of Time Master Quest. And Master Quest is a complete rework of Ocarina of Time with added challenges. Also, slightly stranger because all of the like golden eye switches in Jabu Jabu's Belly, the water temple for kids, or for Kid Link, were replaced by cows just sticking out of the wall of the big fish's stomach. It was weird, but
That's amazing.
it was a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that I think is additive. Like they sure, yeah, they released Ocarina of Time alongside it, but they also gave us Master Quest. Now, alternatively, Majora's Mask released for the DS
Mm-hmm.
with better textures, a better engine on a mobile platform.
Mm-hmm.
So for Majora's Mask for the DS released decade longer, maybe 15
Mm-hmm.
years after it originally released on N64. So while I do agree, like remastering something 2 years after it came out, not the greatest thing because
Mm-hmm.
it's very easy to go back and play something like that. Going out to find an N64 in some places could be hard to do, especially
Right.
where you have to find an N64 with the memory expansion card in order to play a lot of the later generation N64 games.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it is a very old game, I don't necessarily have a problem with it being jumped forward and resold.
Right.
The only reason that she ended up paying full price for it is because it also came with a collectible statue of Majora, like Skull Kid Majora, and some extra stuff. But
Right.
that usually tends to come with collectible stuff, and then we get into perception of value on, you know, desk swag, but I don't want to get into that because we've had the whole perception of value argument with loot boxes, and you're not pushing me into that corner again.
Yeah. I mean, like the argument of like putting things together and all that makes sense, and I'm fine with it. And chat brought up Final Fantasy 10 and 10 2, which also in that not only was that two games, although I will argue all day long that X2 was a terrible game. Hey, I'm not no, let's not sidetrack. We can do that next time. Was X2 okay or not? um the it also came with some story content that was only previously in the international versions of the game. So like there was content that people hadn't previously seen, um which I think that's always neat, is like getting to see a little extra stuff there. So things like that, it makes sense, it's fine. One example of a remaster that I thought was really stupid and pointless was God of War 3 remaster. Like that was just the same game, and the other thing is the gameplay of that game is very shallow. There's no real depth to it. The story is really just kind of there as a trapping on it. Like it's not really important at all. Although it's hilarious that all through the game, the story is not important. And then at the very end, they try to get all like deep and like philosophical with you. And it's like,
Yeah.
where's this coming from? This doesn't make sense because it's very disjointed with the rest of the game. But that remaster, I think the only thing new about it was they added a photo mode. But the photo mode, in my opinion, was added terribly because it was one of those that you could accidentally queue up and then you couldn't figure out how to get out of. So you're playing and then you just hit random combination of keys and you're like, shit, now what do I do? So like those are the remasters that I have really more issue with. Is just like why. And I'm assuming the reason why they did the God of War 3 was to help fund for the newest God of War that came out. But like I'm not really sure that's the best way to go about it. Like what cool game could we have gotten in the meantime, while they were working on that, or something, if they focused on something maybe not as wide in scope as the God of War games, but maybe something more focused, like here's a cool little fun thing.
Well, one of the things that I do look at is like, so you're looking at stuff that's like pretty blatant cash grabs. And
Right.
you say that, well, they could have been working on something else. Well, generally speaking, ports like that are handed off to a third company,
Yeah.
which has its issues.
Right.
There are a lot of, and I don't know, ports can kind of sort of be tangentially related to remasters. There
Mm-hmm.
are problematic ports.
Hmm.
From what I've heard, the port of Nier Automata to PC was rough,
Hmm.
but I don't know if that's because it's just like, oh, we don't have the same graphics options that we're used to for PC initial release games.
Hmm.
Because I know people, because that's one of the things that I remember Total Biscuit always harping on whenever a game came to PC, is that it was like no one ever gave the options that PC users were accustomed to,
Right, right.
which it's a port, so
Yeah,
but
they're not truly making it a PC game. They're just like, oh, look, you can play it on PC.
right. So, but that's still tangentially related to remasters. So
Hmm.
my biggest, like, I look at Master Quest and I think that that is probably like the best part I can really think of for a remaster. And also, remasters often have an opportunity to bundle all of the DLC into
Right.
it, which I actually owned Darksiders 1 and 2 for the Xbox 360, and I went out and I sold those and rebought the remastered versions for the PS4.
Mm.
So I, granted, I bought them used because I'm not going to pay full price for a game that I've already played and beat, but that's an option that I have, which, gaming companies are never happy about, the resale market, but that's
Right.
an entirely another vote. We're just coming up with all kinds of topics tonight. Um,
Somebody write these down because we're always like, wait, what?
yeah, really. But with everything going on, like having all of those options and all of the updates, like there's the opportunity to fix the bugs and all that.
Hmm.
To think about ports and technical, like the absolute worst flub of a remaster I think I've ever seen was Skyrim.
Oh, really?
Yes, because the Skyrim Legendary Edition, the special edition that came with all the DLC and supposedly all the patches,
Hmm.
that's what released to the Nintendo Switch. The
Oh.
Nintendo Switch version had bugs that have existed since the original launch of the game.
Uh-huh.
Decade old bugs that were never touched.
Right.
And that, I believe, is something that falls into your camp. That's a
Right.
cash grab. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you literally can get Skyrim for the Alexa. That wasn't an April Fool's joke. You can do that.
Really?
Skyrim Very Special Edition, yes.
Yeah, well, like old bugs in games, it's an interesting conversation because like in some ways making a game has not changed that much because it's still basically the same kind of thing you're creating, worlds virtually and stuff. But at the same time, the tools that everybody has and everything you can do to create those games has changed vastly. And plus, the whole implementation of like online into most games and all that adds a whole other level of thing. So I always wonder. I always want to be a fly on the wall with some of these remakes, like with Skyrim, where you're saying there were decades old bugs that were still in there. I wonder if it's possible that some of those bugs, if they fixed them, it would have been like breaking to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Warcraft 3 Reforged. I've seen the textures. They look great. I think it's hilarious that they didn't change the voiceovers.
They so
I
they
haven't,
did
I'll admit, I
some.
haven't looked too much into the game.
Yeah, a lot of the voiceovers are the same, but there are some new ones too because they're taking the moment. So back when Warcraft 3 originally came out, Jaina, Sylvanas, and them were all there, but there were smaller parts. Now they are such a big part of World of Warcraft that they took that moment to expand the roles in the game. So my understanding from when I talked to the devs about it was that there will be more content relating to some of those side characters who are much more important now than they had foreseen at the time that game was made. So
Okay, so
I'm
basically
not
that
sure what extent that is,
they're
but
taking
that's
the time to retcon all the way back into Warcraft 3.
pretty much.
Wow. Okay. Well, at least Christy Golden is heading up the narrative department now, and I trust her writing.
Right.
So there's that.
Um, yeah, it's just And there's an argument to be made. I'm going on your side now for a second. There's an argument to be made for like games that you legitimately can't play anymore. Like I still have old Neverwinter Nights and all the DLC for it, and I've tried installing it on my computer, and it kind of runs, but none of the cinematics work, which were a big part of it for me. And like I would love a remaster of that to make it easier to play it because it's just such a fun game.
Wait, Neverwinter Nights, like the original Neverwinter Nights?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure you can get that on Steam.
I don't think so. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think so.
Neverwinter Nights Enhanced Edition.
Okay.
It was released March 27th, 2018.
Oh, I totally missed that somehow.
Yep.
Yep.
It has.
You talk for a while I go buy that.
It's $20, so
nice.
You know, there you go.
Yep.
But
I think like the main thing is there needs to be a certain amount of time that's passed
right.
when it's become substantially difficult to play it anymore. Like
I think that the opportunity is you have these iconic games, which harkening back to yet another vote to kick topic, that basically, like you're saying, is people don't have an opportunity to play it. Right. So you can pull that forward. Now, granted, when we look at something like Darksiders, people looked at Darksiders 1, and that was released in the era of like God of War,
Right.
But I do think that Darksiders defined itself very well. And then Darksiders 2 just really ripped that whole thing wide open with a giant, massive open world RPG.
Right.
Open world, it's not 100%, but
it's like it's one of those things that it was like a step towards that, you know. Right.
And I think that, you know, bringing those forward onto the PS4 was a really good idea. And, you know, Angiera brings up Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Which you can't cheat by changing rooms anymore.
Right.
Just remember, X don't give it to you. And just making it look better. Like you're not using tank controls. Because I remember trying to play... I never played RE2 when it was originally released, but I did play RE2 Clones.
Okay.
And just the tank controls are terrible. Like you now have actual shooter-style controls. So it feels more like you're more involved in the game.
Right.
When I look at stuff that it's just, here is an update. 4K graphics. It can work on 4K monitors or something like that. Right. But everything else is completely the same.
Yeah.
Miss me with that. But, and see, I think this is the point in time where we're arguing into the center here. Because, no Spyro? What about Spyro?
Spyro's the greatest remaster of all time.
I am really impressed with it. I've gotten farther in the Reignited trilogy than I ever got in the first Spyro game ever.
Yeah, I never played the original, so for me it was all new. I never experienced it, but I did find some old video of the original, and like comparing the two side to side is just, it's astonishingly different. Like how much they updated the graphics and like just made things work better. It was well done.
Original Spyro was early PS1, if I remember correctly. So I mean, we went from single digits in polygon count to 4K graphics on the PS4. That's like, that honestly I think is one of the best examples of a remaster, though I would have preferred if they would have
1998.
There we go. Yeah. That's PS1.
1998.
Yep. She Googled it at the same time you did.
Tell her I got it first.
You two were apparently racing, and she got it like 5 seconds before you. You can take it out on her when we go to PAX South or something. But that, and Spyro honestly is another one of those collectathon games that kind of helped define the genre. Right. And seeing that brought back and made more like prominent, though I wish they would have just put all 3 games on the disc instead of being like, no, 2 and 3 are DLC.
Right.
Basically. It's that you own them, or you own the license to download them, but if Activision ever decides to turn them off on their servers, you're screwed. Bye.
Yeah, I can't. I'm always curious about why they did that, because to me it seems so obvious. Why wouldn't you just put them all on three? If you buying the one gets you the other two, why would you not put them all there? And I don't know. Something in my brain says maybe that they didn't think they'd have the other two done in time for pressing, like they worked on them sequentially or something. I don't know.
Or they didn't want to ship multiple discs.
Maybe.
I don't know if that's the issue, but
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking, I worry about that. But that's streaming gaming, yet another vote to kick
Right.
topic. When they decide to turn off the servers, what happens to the content that you purchased?
Right.
So even then, as good as Spyro Reignited was, it's not the best remaster it could have been, because you can lose
Right.
2/3 of what you just purchased.
And I'm curious about that because I never got the disc itself. I got a download code for it, so I had it all just downloaded. But now I'm wondering, I'm like, I wonder if that's subject to the same thing, where if they just take down the servers now, I can't have it anymore.
Well, that's the thing that happened with Silent Hill PT.
Mm-hmm.
It's like people have their PlayStations that have that downloaded, and they sell the PlayStation for
Right.
crazy amounts of money. But that's, again, straying into another topic instead of
Right.
talking about remasters. I think that we've kind of hit the common ground point, and fairly quickly. It's only
Right.
been about 20 minutes for the show. So the common point is your whole point is you don't want it to be a cash grab. So you
Right.
are against stuff that's like, here's better graphics.
Give us money.
But it's the exact same thing. So God of War 3
Right.
for the PS4, which I don't understand why they did that right after they did the PS3 one
Right.
for 1 and 2.
Right. It was so weird. Ugh. Anyway.
And my point is, keep doing the remasters, but make sure you do new stuff with it, i.e. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Master Quest.
Right.
Where
Like
it
if
is-
you're fixing things, improving things, or whatever, then fine. But if you're literally just putting the same thing out again, it's like, why?
What's the point? Right.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think it's like movie rebooting, where in stunts originality or creating new and interesting things? See, retelling a movie is more like retelling a story. I look at the MCU, honestly, for a lot of things. Is there are people who complained when the MCU didn't follow a specific comic book continuity to the T.
Right.
But they're not really thinking about it in that the MCU is in and of itself a continuity, where there are major story beats that are similar in all of the many multiverse reboots, but they have to do things their own way. So remake versus remaster, and Fenris is actually,
Right.
hey look, it's Shadow of the Colossus. Hey look, an iconic game that got remastered and it's not changed at all, but it needed to be shown to more people.
Right.
Thank you, dear.
I was gonna say also, like, you get it. There's definitely a line between when you're remastering something and you're changing things and fixing things, and then you cross into remake. Like if you're changing major story parts or how things unfold, then I think you've clearly gone into remake category instead of remaster.
That's like, what was it, Agatha Christie? And Then There Were None. Did you read the book? Okay, so for those for those who aren't familiar with murder mysteries from decades ago, Agatha
Read
Christie's
your history.
Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None is a book about a bunch of people, 12 people invited to an island, and they slowly start dying, murdered. And it turns out that one of the guys on the island was behind this, and then he kills himself at the end of the book because he sees all of these people, and he thought they did terrible things in their life and they got away with it, so he took it upon himself to deliver justice and then killed himself because
Right.
he just killed people.
Which is a concept that has been reused in a lot of movies and shows and everything.
Yes. Spoiler warning. Sorry, Deo. I apologize. But in the movie, which Agatha Christie actually consulted for, there is a love subplot that has been added. And they get away at the end. Which Agatha Christie preferred because that's what she pushed for. And I don't often like disagreeing with the author, but I honestly think the book was far better. And that was actually a raging discussion in the literature class that I was in high school about that. But again, another topic. Vote to kick old murder mysteries. But yes, and then Angira is bringing up reboots and remakes, remasters, and reboots are three different things. They are similar, but they are different. And Dad of War or a Dad of Boy is a 4. That is not a remake, is not a reboot, is not a remaster. It is a continuation.
Right.
Thankfully, it's better storytelling than God of War 3.
Right. Honestly, I think it's like, okay, so disclaimer that I didn't really like the new God of War that much. I had a hard time getting into it. But I also think the storytelling in it was probably better than any of the previous God of Wars overall.
I would think that God of War 1 actually is on par or at least close to it because it actually follows standard story beats of
it's
Greek
essentially
tragedy.
yeah.
But at the same time, then God of War 2 and 3 kind of get into the, well, we're continuing this because it made so much money.
Right. Well, God of War 3 is essentially, hey, let's just kill all of the gods in the most cruel way for them. Like, that's essentially what it is.
You pop Helios's head off and use him as a flashlight. So,
I mean, you rip, what is it, Mercury's feet off? Like, I mean, it's just like, okay.
Yeah, it's the God of War, the original trilogy was very much the
and then you can't forget about the sex mini games
that people complained about missing from God of War 4, and I'm just like, different game, different era,
game, and really, like they weren't that good.
Thank you for putting the poll back up, Dale. But I think we're just kind of getting into the weeds and just kind of rambling through. So I tried to do this a few minutes ago, but we've got on the kick side, to do the guess point first, you are very much looking to kick simple cash grabs, i.e. God of War 3 for the PS4.
Yeah.
I am looking to keep remasters because it gives people an opportunity, one, to bring an old game to a new generation of people, to expand the audience. It gives people an opportunity to do new things with new technology and new graphics. I honestly, Majora's Mask updated is kind of terrifying because that game is hella dark for a Zelda game.
Yeah.
And yes, Angira, digressing is something we do on this entire channel very frequently.
Right.
And just in general, bringing new experiences to new audiences, although that's reiterating my first point. So I've really got those 2 points. New audiences, new things. And I think that's about it. So, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Mad Realms Vote to Kick. I'm your host, Jim. You can find me on Twitter at MalthanusMMO. You can find me on twitch.tv/MadRealms. That's 2 A's in the Mad. Every Wednesday, usually at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight, 7 p.m. because Arlee's got raiding to do at 8, which you can find on her channel, twitch.tv/Arlee82, which you can also find her on Twitter and Instagram at those same tags. We also have this channel live on Saturdays at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I really should have just like a list of my outro stuff on the wall. Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for our weekly Guild Wars 2 news podcast, Talking Script, where I will not be on this weekend because I will be celebrating an Easter weekend at my in-laws because my mother-in-law finally has a day shift so she can be a normal person again. But, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you all have a fantastic evening. Oh, YouTube stuff. I always forget about this. For those of you watching on YouTube, the poll link will be in the description below. Tell us, cast your vote to keep or kick, and then tell us why in the comments. And also, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, sacrifice a goat, whatever YouTube wants you to do now. And I hope to talk to you in the comments there. So you all have a fantastic evening, and I hope to see you all here in 2 weeks. We're moving to a 2-week schedule for Vote to Kick. And I will see you all later. Good night, everybody.
Bye.